Hi, I'm Lauren Rivers, and this is the first in perhaps a series of videos about conventions. The particular issue I'm going to talk about in this introductory video is going to be line etiquette. Now, in the time I've been in various fandoms, I've gone to a number of conventions of all shapes and sizes. And one of the things you're going to run into in just about all of them is lines of one form or another. Now, for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to be talking about three conventions that I've attended multiple times over the years: Star Trek Las Vegas, BronyCon, and Midwest Fur Fest. Now, of course, these are three very different fandoms with very different circumstances, so they're going to be my three benchmarks for outlining exactly what I'm going to be talking about. Star Trek Las Vegas is a corporate-run convention operated by Creation Entertainment, and of course you can tell it's centered around Star Trek. Now, they were particularly notable for having practically no wait in any of the lines. And I would specifically say that with registration, it was less than 2 minutes that we walked up, we got our wristband and our badge, and we were done. Now, part of the reason why this is because they didn't have any personalized equipment or any personalized badges of any kind. Now, this, of course, I'm sure saved a lot of time because all they had to do was just take a random badge and stick it on you rather than printing a personalized badge and finding your name. Now, BronyCon and Midwest Fur Fest, of course, are both by contrast volunteer-run, as well as the fact that FurryCon sometimes do custom art that you can select, and both conventions allow you to customize your name. Now, while this is a nice feature, for something you're going to stick in a drawer, sometimes I question whether or not a truly personalized badge is something that conventions at large should continue to do. But in any case, BronyCon and Midwest Fur Fest are both, well, BronyCon, I was at two different sizes of BronyCon. One was about 5,000 people and the other one was 10. The 5,000 person version, we were on registration I think for maybe 5 minutes. The 10,000 convention, we were online for about 2 hours. And for Midwest Fur Fest, particularly this year, and it seemed like it was longer than in previous years, we were online for 3 hours. Now, last year we had waited until late Thursday when they would have gotten through some of the line, but for some reason, last year I don't remember being online for more than an hour and change. Now, I don't mind an hour, but when it gets longer than that, particularly on a reg line, it just gets complicated. But here are a few things I'm going to say, both about things people do and about things that you personally can do to prepare for lines like that. Now, at BronyCon and at Star Trek Las Vegas in particular, I ended up doing a lot of autograph hunting, which is not something that really happens so much at furry conventions, just because we're more all fans of each other. But at conventions for specific shows and media, they can be a significant time investment, particularly if they're a high-in-demand voice actor or one of the primary stars of the series. It can take a while, so be prepared to budget a fair amount of time for autographs. Now, in the case of Star Trek Las Vegas, for the photo opportunities, they would have short windows for even the major stars, and I kind of wondered if they were even going to be able to get everybody through it, but somehow they did. They were very efficient about it because they had about 12 people monitoring the photo lines and the guests. They had it very well organized, and you just went up, took your picture, and moved on. That was really all that you did. So they were able to get through like 100 people in 5 minutes, and that was how it worked there. You might have an opportunity to say one or two quick things to the guest. You took your picture, and then you got out of the way. And that was how they were able to move through lines so quickly and efficiently and get hundreds of guests and thousands of con-goers through the lines very, very fast. Now, of course, I'm sure all these folks were paid employees, and I will reiterate that Star Trek Las Vegas is a corporate-run convention, but considering the difference in that versus BronyCon, it was significant. Now, you're going to plan to be there for a while. This time, because I knew I was going to be on a couple of autograph lines, I made sure to bring water, my MP3 player, my tablet so that I had my books and my games, and my Nintendo DS XL. And also bear in mind that you may or may not have access to a restroom. The line, depending on the temperament of the line, may allow you to step out to use the restroom, but they also might not. So be prepared and don't necessarily have a lot to drink before you get on a line. You should show up early to any autograph or photo lines. Depending on how early really depends on the convention. Star Trek Las Vegas, the photo lines, you showed up about 20 minutes early and you were fine. My Little Pony, security started telling you to show up no earlier than an hour before the line started at a certain point in the convention, but particularly when I was first on getting on the lines, I showed up several hours early, usually about 2.5, just to be sure that I would get an early spot, which turned out to be advantageous considering I was going to be waiting on at least 5 autograph lines over the course of 2 days. To give you an idea of exactly how much time I spent online, over the course of Saturday and Friday, I spent 13 hours on the 5 autograph lines, some of which were very quick, some of which were not so quick once things started moving. Some cons provide things to sign, others do not. If you have something in mind, bring it with you or accept whatever it is that they have available. Now, at My Little Pony, they usually had a small print. At Star Trek Las Vegas, the actors had a selection of headshots. And, of course, there was also a table at Star Trek Las Vegas where you could buy photos of just about any of the guests that they had there, and also protective coverings for the photos, so you could go and pick what you wanted and take it with you and have it ready whenever you were going to be looking for somebody. This was kind of handy because in Star Trek Las Vegas they opened the convention Tuesday night to the dealer's room for sort of a preview night, so you could get some photos and be ready for autographs and pictures and such the next day. Now, in the case of registration lines like Midwest Fur Fest, there were a couple of things that I would have preferred that they had been able to do, and I realize, at least in this particular case, that they were not prepared because it was the first time I think that the convention had had that particular set of circumstances. But it would have been, I guess, appreciative if some of the con staff had maybe been able to give a time estimate for how long the line was going to be. Since this had never taken more than maybe an hour in my experience, it was a little bit frustrating because we ended up being online for 3 hours. We didn't really know that it was going to be that long, and of course once you're online for like an hour or so, you don't want to get off the line because then you just have wasted that hour. And by this time, it's a little late to think to bring anything to keep you hydrated, entertained, other such things. Now, it would have been appreciative if the staff had been able to say the wait's going to be about 3 hours from this point, you might want to come back later, or if they had split it up based on, I don't know, your segment of the alphabet, or I don't know, some, your registration level or something, or pre-mailed the badges to us at home. I don't know exactly what you need to do, but 3 hours is a lot of time to wait on a reg line. And this second thing has less to do with the con and more to do with the people waiting on the line. People that are on a reg line, it's in BronyCon and in Midwest Fur Fest, they were people that were playing their Bluetooth speakers and singing really loudly. Both of these things are fine in a normal convention setting, but in the case of a line where your fellow line goers cannot elect not to listen or have no opportunity to request you to stop, it's really inconsiderate. Please do not bring MP3 Bluetooth speakers or sing at a really loud volume on a reg line. Your fellow line goers will thank you for it. Personally, I think conventions, particularly in the case of a reg line, should just outright forbid that from being allowed, and perhaps even in just general con space. There is really no reason you should be forcing everybody else to listen to your music, particularly in the case of a registration line where they're going to be there for 3 hours. And it would be very much appreciated if anybody that happens to be on a con staff or knows con staff to maybe bring up this issue and see if there's anything that can be done. I don't know if there's anything you really can do about it because, it's other people, but this is just a request from me to please, please do not force me to listen to your music. Because honestly, if I want to listen to music, I'll bring my own. Again, this is fine in con space where I can walk away from you or you can walk away from me and we're not necessarily stuck with each other, but in a line, I don't think that's okay. Also, make sure that you have consideration for other people and for the con guests if you happen to be on an autograph or a photo line. Because in the case of Star Trek, the lines weren't that long of a wait, but in the case of BronyCon, you could have been waiting for 2 hours and change. Then, at least a couple of times the con guest had to go to a panel, in which case you were unfortunately out of luck. Now, a couple of rules of thumb for dealing with the kind of line you have at BronyCon. It's like they do photos and signatures, and you can do them both at once. And they give you the opportunity to converse with the guest. But for the sake of your fellow line goers and just for general consideration, have your item ready. Do not be fumbling with your item online or get up to the front of the line and then have to pull 20 photos out of plastic sleeves and then put them back while your other line goers have to wait. Have your money prepared. Have exact change if possible. Most of the time, these lines will be able to make change for you, but at least have your money out. Star Trek Las Vegas, in this particular case, allows you to prepay, particularly in the case of photo opportunities. Some autographs you can purchase the ticket ahead of time, but others do it directly through their own representative. So it really depends on the particular guest, but if you can, it's a good time saver. But the point is, have your stuff ready to go because everybody else in line, they don't want to have to wait for you to do that. Also, preferably if they allow multiple signatures, please do not bring more than 2 or 3 things to sign. I appreciate that you may have more, but I remember particularly one story during BronyCon where there was one person that had a cart full of items. They had 7 things to sign, and it took them a good 2 or 3 minutes to clear their stuff out of the way. I am sorry, but that is just inconsiderate, and there should have been a limit placed on how many signatures the actor was willing to do. Now, he might get a pass because he's the first one to do something. I don't know, but still, I kind of think, and maybe I just misunderstood because I never even thought to ask. I always only got 1 signature per guest. Now, I can see that you might want at least 2, but more than 3, and that's just excessive. I think that just is disrespectful to the 100 people that are behind you in line. Have your remarks prepared. If you know what you're going to say, and if you're going to be online, you're going to have plenty of time to think about it. Think about the most important thing you want to say to the guest. If you have time, that's great, but do not hold the conversation, especially if you're on a line where everybody is behind you. In the case of Star Trek Las Vegas, some of the actors had a table where there was nobody talking to them at the time. In a case like that, that's fine. Stand and talk to them for a little while, or as long as they're willing to engage you. But if it's a case where you are at the front of a line, you're talking to the guest, and there are 50 to 100 people behind you, we don't want to listen to a 5-minute conversation that you're having. I know that you're having fun and that you have been looking forward to the guest, but so has everybody else. So, say, I love your work, say whatever it is you really want to say. Make sure you have 1 or 2 things that you absolutely have to get out. Say those things, and if you get the opportunity for more, great, but do not be greedy. Finally, when you're finished, please move aside so that the next person can have their fair share of time with the guest. If you have a lot of items to pack up or whatever it is that you have to collect, try and do it out of the way of the next person that's interacting with the guest, and do not stick around any longer than you have to. Ideally, we want these lines to be fun for everyone, or at the very least, as painless as possible. Now, I realize that there are some things that you can't do much about, But insofar as if you're waiting in line, you want it to be something that everybody can at least get what they need out of the line. Also, one last thing, which I guess is not really related here to anything much, but my advice is if you're going to be waiting in a reg line, don't wait in fursuit, because you're just going to be standing in line for 2 to 3 hours, possibly at the larger conventions. Even if you've pre-registered, it's just not worth it. You're literally just going to be standing in line, and you may need to access your ID. I think it's probably not a good idea, but hey, if you want to sweat, go right ahead. That's your call. Just saying, I think it's probably something that's impractical. But, of course, you know, in fairness, I guess fursuiting is kind of impractical by its definition, maybe, but I don't know. Just a thought. In any case, that is my thoughts on line etiquette at conventions. Lauren Rivers, signing off. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter and a few other places on the web, or support me via Patreon or Ko-fi. Zebra hugs!